paranormal that cannot be explained by scientific methods.
Told of a creature that was 6.5 to 7 feet tall.
The CIA ran secret mind control experiments.
It's a tale of a creature that's been seen by many, but believed by few.
And experts say there have been reported sightings of paranormal activity.
And there was this creature that ran down this hill.
They say something was flying over their house, and they have no idea what it was.
How the world's most powerful individuals are actually shape-shifting reptilians.
My scariest ghost hunting experience.
Jason and JV.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers?
I want the truth!
You can't handle the truth! Can't handle the truth!
Put it down!
Beyond Reality Radio.
And welcome, everyone. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson. Jason is off tonight. We've got a great show. We're going to talk facts, not just regular facts, but we're going to talk fascinating facts tonight with Charles Reichblum. He is the guy known as Dr. Knowledge. He's got a book out called The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts. Plus, he's got a whole series of books called Knowledge in a Nutshell. He's been collecting and presenting fascinating, interesting, curious facts for a lot of years. He's got a lot of really cool stuff that we're going to talk about. Plus, we're going to talk about how he got started. At what point in your life do you start becoming a collector of interesting and curious facts? Maybe we do that all the time. We just don't realize it. But Charles will talk about that with us after our break. We'll bring him in. It's going to be a great show. Tomorrow night, we've got Crystal Reed, who is an author and a pet psychic, joining the program. She'll be discussing pets and her book, How to Live with a Psychic. And then Thursday, Keith McCloskey, who is an author, will be with us to discuss the Flannan Isles mystery. A lot of great stuff coming up here on Beyond Reality Radio. Also, some things that I want to mention that are coming up that you need to be aware of. One is that I'm looking forward to an event that's just a couple weeks away here, August 18th and 19th. It's called the Pennhurst Paracon, and it's going to be held at the Pennhurst Asylum in Pennsylvania. It's near Philadelphia. The town is actually Spring City, Pennsylvania. We are going to start fresh and pull a new playing card out of the deck. And then we'll take your calls to see if you can focus on my thoughts. Scary thing, right? Focus on my thoughts. Try to figure out what card I am looking at and thinking of. And then we will have a T-shirt for you. If someone gets it, we'll send out a T-shirt. How's that sound? Good stuff, right? Don't forget to stop by the Facebook page. Give it a like. It's just Beyond Reality Radio. Also, stop by my Facebook page. It's a great way to keep track of things that are going on. For example, last night we had a special YouTube broadcast with Rebecca Foster. We did a special. Rebecca and I did a special readings with Rebecca on YouTube last night. It went really, really well. We did it. No, we didn't do it. Well, we did it on YouTube, but we also did it on Facebook. It got a lot of attention, and those things are announced on my Facebook page. So go to JVJ Paranormal. It's just facebook.com/JVJ Paranormal and give that a like. That'll keep you up to date on what's happening when we're doing special things, all of that. Also, write down the phone number for later in the program. It's 844-687-7669. We will take your calls as we progress here. So we've got a great show lined up. Like I said, Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge, will join us. We'll be talking about all-time fascinating facts. That's coming up on Beyond Reality Radio. Don't go away. We've got a great show ahead. Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson. Thanks for being here. Jason is off tonight, but we've got a great show lined up for you. Most of us are. I was going to say you are, but most of us are trivia buffs. We like things that are interesting, curious. We like to know facts. I know I go to trivia nights frequently. I love to pretend I know a lot of stuff. Sometimes I win, most of the times I lose. But either way, it's just a lot of good fun. Well, our guest tonight, Charles Reichblum, who is also known as Dr. Knowledge, has made a career of collecting such facts and has published a number of books, the Knowledge in a Nutshell series, plus the all-time book of fascinating facts. We've had him on the show before. Charles, welcome back to Beyond Reality Radio. It's great to have you on.
Well, thank you, JV. Nice being with you again.
So we all know that there are some really, I don't know how to put them. You say all-time fascinating facts. I say just very, very curious things that you've collected over the course of the years, assembled this information and put it in a nice, easy form for people to read. But the real question is, how did you get interested in this in the first place? We've had this conversation before in the program. We have a lot of new listeners. They want to know, how did you start this?
Well, it goes back a long time, JV. I was in high school, and that was quite a while ago, over 50 years ago. I was in high school, and I got a job at I loved radio, and this is back in the days of before TV, actually, early 1940s, before TV came along. And I just fell in love, I guess, when I was 10, 11, 12 years old with radio. I listened to all the stations and everything. And a friend of mine got me a job at a local, I'm from Pittsburgh, a local Pittsburgh radio station as what we would call an intern today. They didn't call it interns in those days. Anyhow, my job was, of course, we didn't have computers in those days, and my job was they had teletypes. The news came over teletypes. There was a roll of paper in the teletype, and the news was typed out electronically, and my job was to tear off the stories as they came in on the teletypes. We had like 4 teletypes there. And my job was to tear off the stories and put them up. They had nails on the wall. One place you put news, another place sports, another place business news, another nail was for feature stories and so on. So being the youngest one there, and I was just a teenager working there, they had me working on July 4th. And a story came over the teletype from the Associated Press that 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents all died on July 4th. And I thought, boy, that's an amazing fact. I don't remember learning that in school, that 3 of the first 5 presidents all died on July 4th. The fact that 3 of the first 5 presidents would all die on the same date was amazing. And of all the dates in the year, it was July 4th, but that's exactly what happened. And these were all unrelated causes, which even made it more amazing. The second president, John Adams, died on July 4th, 1826. July 4th, 1826. And then the 5th president, James Monroe, died on July 4th, 1831. So, what are the odds on that? And by the way, let me just interject one more little thing in there. We almost had 4 presidents dying on July 4th, 4 of the first 5, because the 4th president, James Madison, died on a June 28th. He almost made it to July 4th. So anyhow, I looked at that story and I said, boy, that's amazing. And that really started my interest, I guess, or desire or passion for these kind of stories. And I wrote that down. I put it in my pocket and really started collecting stories like that. After I got out of college, I started a business where we syndicated a newspaper column called Interesting Facts around the U.S. and Canada. And I did that most of my adult life, and then over the years people said, why don't you put that stuff in books? And that's culminated with my latest book, where I tried to put in what I consider the best of everything I have into this book called The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts. So that's called JV, just that one story about 3 of the first 5 U.S. presidents all dying on July 4th, which, is really an incredible fact. And I just went from there and spent most of my life looking for stories like that, digging for stories like that. And when you do, it's amazing how many you can find. I used to read all the obituaries in the major newspapers where they, had a lot of details on a person, and you always seem to find a fascinating fact or, something unusual about somebody or some event.
I can't help but wonder, as you started with that particular fact, which by itself is just amazing, and then started to collect more, did you start to wonder whether these things were just coincidences, things like that, or if there was something more mystical in action? Like when we talk,
it's a very, very good question, and here's one good example of where you could ask that question about this. The crew of Apollo 11, which put the first men on the moon, was Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins, right? That was Apollo 11. They put the first men on the moon, and their initials, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, Michael Collins, their last name initials were AAC. Meantime, the biblical first men on Earth were Adam, Abel, and Cain, also with the initials AAC. So you have to wonder, was that just a coincidence or maybe not?
It's pretty amazing stuff. You can't help but think there's something larger at play here with facts like that. But I want to go back to this presidential fact because it's, first of all, the whole concept, and I started in radio back in the days of teletypes as well, Charles, and I remember those machines. And for people who don't know what we're talking about, because the computer age has changed everything, but these were basically giant typewriters that somebody else in an office, generally in New York City, in a newsroom or something, was typing into it, and through basically a telephone line, it would connect to these remote typewriters and type out these things. They were loud, they were noisy, and they just continued to turn out, and you had to change these rolls of paper. I can't imagine how much paper we used to go through back then.
Yeah, they were all yellow rolls of yellow paper, right?
Yeah, and then you had to go through and kind of clip through them and read them. And believe me, in the course of an hour, 100 stories would go by, and you're lucky if you caught 2 or 3 of them. You'd learn to expect certain things at certain times of the day. But there almost seems to be a certain bit of a fate happening in your world as you came across that particular fact over the teletype that kind of launched this lifelong interest in these things.
Just happened to be working on a July 4th, and probably if I had been older, I would not, I would have gotten the day off probably. But since I was the young person there, I was one of the ones they had working on the holiday. And that story came over, and it is amazing. I mean, I always liked American history, and I don't remember any teacher ever telling that story. I like to think of things like what we just talked about that are you might even say important or fascinating in themselves without being obscure. That they're not did something that is meaningless. These are all much more meaningful, much more surprising, much more intriguing, I guess is a good word. Interesting, intriguing. So I try to, I've always looked for things like that, which I don't consider trivial. There's all kinds of questions, and some like the two we've just talked about, and we'll talk about a lot more here, I assume, tonight, that are just amazing. If you want to get into more coincidences, we can talk about it now or later.
Yeah, let's wait. We have about 45 seconds here before we have to go to break.
Okay.
So we'll do it on the other side of the break. But I just find, I think most people have this. Is it just a thirst for knowledge that drives us, or is it a thirst for interesting knowledge?
Yeah, I think it's interesting knowledge, something that makes you say, "Gee, isn't that amazing?" Or "Isn't that a wonderful fact?" Or it's something you'd like to repeat to somebody, or even just think about it. Gee. And there are so many things in life like that. That's the other interesting thing. These things, seem to happen. And the coincidences we'll talk about after your break, all the coincidences between the assassinations of John Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln. It's just incredible how many there were.
And we're going to talk about that and more when we come back from the break. We're talking with Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge. His website is knowledgeinanutshell.com, and the book is the all-time book of fascinating facts. We're going to continue this conversation after the break. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm J.V. Johnson. All to be witnesses. I've been soaking in water for the last 3 hours. Let's just see here. I'm going to be very, very careful about how I open this. Yeah, and don't make fun of my hair, because I was in my bedroom in the air conditioning because it's so damn hot here. Lying in bed watching. Actually, I was listening to another radio show, a competitor. So, JV, some goodies for you from our local nut and candy shop, who also makes everything on site. Sound like it might be delicious. Let's see here. Ooh, now we're talking. First stop. Yes. Second stop. Look at that. Oh, boy. Doug, what are you trying to do to me? And third stop. Look at that. See, they know how good this stuff is. Make sure I don't... Doug, thank you so much. That is not the explosive device that I thought was going to be in this box, so I'm very much appreciative. And I'm also very appreciative for you fueling my addiction to snacking. particularly the orange slices. It's all good. Thank you. Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson. Jason is off tonight. Interesting facts, fascinating facts, things that kind of blow your mind. That's what we're talking about tonight on the program with Dr. Knowledge himself, Charles Reichblum. His book is called The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts. Check out the website, knowledgeinanutshell.com. And Charles, you have a series of books, the Knowledge in a Nutshell series as well. And the All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts, that's your most recent book, is that correct?
Yeah, what I decided to do, JV, was take the best of all I've collected over the years, some things that are in some of the other books, some that aren't, and then I spent about 2.5 years writing this book, getting a lot of new things, too, that I'd researched. So this is, of all the books, this is my 12th book, actually, but I recommend this one because it really has the best of everything that I've had over the years, and it's timeless. I try to make it so nothing will get out of date. I'll tell you a funny story later. There is one little fact that did get out of date after we published it, but so it really is just the culmination of all the. I've been doing this for about 50 years, as I had said, and I just took what I thought was the best of everything I had. I have file drawers here that, of course, again, I started long before computers, so I just have 8 file cases here with 4 or 5 drawers each, all filled with all the facts I've collected, and I just went through them all in the 2.5 years that I was writing the book and just picked out what I thought were the most interesting or most fascinating facts that I had collected.
What tends to be the most common, or is there a common source for this information? Is there one place that these things keep popping up most for you, or is this kind of a needle in the haystack kind of search and you just come across it when you do?
It's a combination of a lot of things. A lot of it's just in the news, like the story we told about the crew that put the first men on the moon. That was one that just occurred to me. I guess I was just in bed thinking about that one evening, and I thought, geez, AAC, Armstrong, Aldrin, Collins, Adam, Abel, Cain. So some just come to you that way, just, by what's going on in the news. Some are, people like the Kennedy-Lincoln coincidences that we'll talk about. People have researched that, and so I took advantage of their research. And I do always try to at least double-check everything to make sure it's accurate. And over the years, people have sent me things. As I say, we did this call. I did a weekly column called Interesting Facts. So, when you constantly look for things like this, you tend to, when you're really looking for them, they tend to pop out at you. And so people's lives. There's a funny story about that. The editor of the obituary page, the story goes, used to come in every morning and say, "Did anybody good die today?" She was looking for a good story,
right?
Interesting story. So that was one very good source over the many years of things stand out there that. And we have a lot of it. And then, there are things like you hear the song Happy Birthday to You, and did anybody ever stop and say, hey, who wrote that song? We get to that story a little bit later, too. Another one, JV, is hamburgers. We order a hamburger, you're sitting there eating a hamburger with somebody, and does it occur to you to say, hey, there's no ham in hamburgers? Why in the world are they called hamburgers?
Right,
There is no ham.
They're not called beef. They're not called beef burgers.
That's right. And there is no ham. There's no question. There's no ham in hamburgers. So why in the world do we call them hamburgers? If your folks would like the answer to that question, it's because in the late 1800s there was a big wave of immigration of German immigrants to the United States, and the people from Hamburg, Germany, brought with them their custom of serving ground meat, which was unusual in those days. This is like 1880, and the people in the United States began calling the ground meat that the people from Hamburg, Germany brought, they began calling them hamburgers after Hamburg, Germany. So the name, as I say, when you're having a hamburger with your friend the next time, you say, hey, wait a minute, there ain't no ham here. Why do they call it hamburgers? The name really comes from the city of origin, very much like Frankfurters, the same way. They were basically made in Frankfurt, Germany, and that's why we call them Frankfurters. And wieners, they comes basically from the German word for Vienna. They, of course, speak German in Austria, where Vienna is. They were a big maker of wieners there, and that's spelled W-E-I-N. That's what they call Vienna in German. So that's where the word wieners came from. So again, these things came from basically from their city of origin. But it's more, Frankfurters and wieners are one thing, but really the hamburger story is more interesting because, as I say, we don't ever stop to think there is no ham in hamburgers. Why do we call them hamburgers? But the reason is from their city of origin, Hamburg, Germany.
Let's talk about some more presidential fascinating facts. I know of two because we talked about one last time, and you mentioned the JFK and Lincoln assassinations, and I want to start with that one, and then I want to talk about the fascinating fact that you talked about last time you were on the program, where one person had been on site during several assassinations.
3, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, that's a fascinating one. So you can start with either one, Charles, whichever one you want to start with.
Up to you. We can do the Lincoln-Kennedy coincidences, which are truly amazing.
Yeah, let's do that.
It just boggles the mind how many there are. I have them all listed in my book, The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts. I don't know how many I can remember here offhand, but I'll give you as many as I can remember. It runs several pages, all that. And then hid in a theater. Both Lincoln and Kennedy died in a place with the initials PH. Lincoln was taken after he was shot at Ford Theater. He was taken across the street to a boarding house in Washington, D.C. by the name of the Peterson House, which had the initials PH. Kennedy, after he was shot, was taken to Parkland Hospital, where he was pronounced dead, also with the initials PH. Lincoln had sons named Robert and Edward. Kennedy had brothers named Robert and Edward. Lincoln's secretary was named Kennedy. Kennedy's secretary was named Lincoln. And I think the final great oddity here is the car in which Kennedy was riding when he was shot. The car was a Lincoln.
Wow.
Isn't that amazing?
The whole thing is amazing. I go back to this serendipity thing. How can so many of these quote-unquote coincidences have existed between two monumental historical events?
Right. It's just incredible. And so, it makes life fascinating, really.
It really does. All right, let's do this. Let's take a break. And when we come back, then we'll tell the story about the individual that was present at 3 presidential assassinations. That in itself is mind-blowing.
Very good. And there is a connection there, by the way, with Lincoln and Kennedy.
All right, so we'll do that right after the break. We're talking with Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge. His book is called The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts. The website is knowledgeinanutshell.com. Don't go away. We have a lot more fascinating stuff to talk about on Beyond Reality Radio. A little spider, not a very big one. I just don't want him kind of making a mess in my hair here. Coming down from the ceiling. Welcome back to the show, everybody. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm J.V. Johnson. We're talking about the all-time book of fascinating facts. Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge, is the author of that book. His website is knowledgeinanutshell.com. You should check that out. And we just got finished talking about the coincidences between the JFK assassination and the Abraham Lincoln assassination, which is mind-blowing in itself to think that those two unbelievably monumental historical events had so many things in common. But there's another story or another series of facts that relate to presidential assassinations, or it's one fact, I guess, that there is a single individual that was present at 3 assassinations. I mean, this is almost, I guess that's why it's fascinating, Charles. It's almost too fascinating to believe.
Oh, it's just incredible, JV. We've had 4 presidential assassinations, and one person was on the scene for 3 of them, and that was spread over a period of over 30 years. Which is just amazing that one person would be on the scene when 3 different presidents were assassinated, but that happened, and it happened to a very famous person. And I guess we'll go ahead with the story.
Yeah, let's tell this. This is a good one.
Okay, and there's a connection with Abraham Lincoln because it was Abraham Lincoln's son, Robert Lincoln, who was the person who was on the scene when 3 different presidents were assassinated over quite a long period of time. Robert Lincoln, of course, was with his father right after Abraham Lincoln was shot in 1865. And then 16 years later, Robert Lincoln had gotten into politics himself and was in the cabinet of President James Garfield. This was in 1881, 16 years after his father had been assassinated. Robert Lincoln was in the cabinet of President James Garfield. And Garfield was leaving on a train trip from the Washington Railroad Station. The cabinet went down to say goodbye to him. They had some unfinished business. And a man came up to Garfield, a man described as a disappointed office seeker. He said that Garfield had offered him a job and he never got it. In any case, he pulled out a revolver. They didn't have security like we have today, and point blank shot President James Garfield. And Robert Lincoln was standing about 2 feet away from Garfield when Garfield was shot. So that was number 2. And then, incredibly, 20 years after that, in 1901, by that time Robert Lincoln had left politics, went into business, was head of the chairman of the Pullman Company, which was a big deal in those days. And because of that, he was elected president of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce in 1901. There was a business exposition in Buffalo, New York, and President William McKinley invited Robert Lincoln to come to the business exposition since Robert was head of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. And as Robert Lincoln walked in the exhibition hall at this business exposition, there was a receiving line, and a man got in the receiving line, and he had a revolver his hand was bandaged, and under the bandage was a revolver. And, of course, they didn't have metal detectors in those days. This guy got in the line. He was described as an anarchist who wanted to kill a president, and he indeed did. As the receiving line came up to McKinley, this man shot McKinley, again, point blank. And again, Robert Lincoln was right there, standing right there as President McKinley was shot. So after that, Robert McKinley vowed that he would never again get anywhere near a president. And as we say in our book, the all-time book of fascinating facts, probably nobody would have invited him anyhow. And he never did. He lived another 25 years after that, by the way, Robert Lincoln. He lived to a ripe old age. He didn't die till 1926. And he was very wealthy. His business career had made him wealthy. He built a beautiful mansion in Vermont, which is still there and is a tourist attraction. Anybody who gets up to, it's in Manchester, Vermont. It's a big shopping area. And in that town of Manchester, Vermont, is the mansion of Robert Lincoln, which is open. It is a tourist attraction. You can actually visit there. So he basically spent the rest of his life up there in Vermont. and did not go to Washington, D.C., did not get anywhere near another president. So, but it's just amazing that he was there for, as I say, we've had 4 presidential assassinations, and he was there for 3 of them.
It really is unbelievable. And did he actually say that he was going to avoid being near another president? Because he actually
he
did.
Said he'd never get.
Wow.
And I guess he
right, of course.
He was the right man in the wrong place at the wrong time.
All right, we're fascinating facts that Charles has included in his book. There's a lot of them, and they're all just as interesting as what we've been talking about already. So don't go away. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm J.V. Johnson. We have a lot more ahead.
paranormal that cannot be explained by scientific methods.
Told of a creature that was 6.5 to 7 feet tall.
The CIA ran secret mind control experiments.
It's a tale of a creature that's been seen by many, but believed by few.
And experts say there have been reported sightings of paranormal activity.
And there was this creature, and it ran down this hill.
They say something was flying over their house, and they have no idea what it was.
How the world's most powerful individuals are actually shape-shifting reptilians.
My scariest ghost hunting experience.
And welcome to the show, everybody. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson. Jason is off tonight, and we have a great show for you, talking to Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge. He is the author of a book called The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts, and we're going to bring him back into the program in just a moment. Tomorrow night, we've got Crystal Reed, who is an author and a pet psychic, joining the show, and she'll be talking about pets plus her book called How to Live with a Psychic. And then Thursday, Keith McCluskey, who is an author, will be joining us to talk about the Flannan Isles mystery. Friday night, of course, is always a best of program on Beyond Reality Radio. It's always a good one to listen to as well. And we invite you to join the Facebook group. Come to our Facebook page, give it a like so you can be updated in all the most recent information, guests, other information, appearances, that kind of thing, that Beyond Reality Radio is involved with. And also stop by the website at beyondrealityradio.com, and you can check out the Beyond Reality Radio coffee mug. It's a great-looking mug, looks great on a desk, on a coffee table, on a kitchen table, on the counter, wherever, and coffee tastes great out of it. So it's the Beyond Reality Radio coffee mug. You'll find it on beyondrealityradio.com. A couple things. I want to mention that I'll be appearing at the Pennhurst Paracon. That's coming up in Spring City, Pennsylvania, near Philadelphia, on August 18th and 19th. Look forward to seeing so many of you there. And that'll be a great time. It's at the Pennhurst Asylum, again, Spring City, Pennsylvania. Make sure you visit, if you can. PennhurstParacon.com is the website. And also, later in the program, for our last segment, we're going to revisit our psychic remote viewing experiment. I'll draw a playing card for you, and we'll give you an opportunity to call in, try to tap into what I'm seeing, and see if you can figure out what the card is. And if you do, I'll have a T-shirt for you. And we'll do that late in the last segment of the program. But right now, let's bring Charles back into the program. Charles, I want to go back to the discussion about the presidential facts. Is there something about politics that lends itself to these types of very, very interesting and fascinating facts and or coincidences, if that's the right word?
Yeah, it could be. And, here, the Robert Lincoln story we just told, what are the odds that anybody would be on the scene at 3 different assassinations spread out over a period of, 36 years. It just boggles the mind, and it happened to be a very famous person. There's also another story about him, JV, if you'd like to get into that is also absolutely incredible.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, Robert Lincoln, when his father was president, and this is a couple of years before the assassination, Robert Lincoln was a student at Harvard and was coming home on a vacation, coming back to Washington, D.C. During a vacation period. And, of course, in those days, people traveled by train, basically. There were no airplanes or cars. So he was taking a train from, this is in 1862, he's taking a train from Boston, where Harvard basically is located, back to Washington. But he had to change trains in Jersey City, New Jersey. So he gets off the train from Boston in Jersey City, and is waiting on the platform for the connecting train, for the train that was going to take him down to Washington, D.C., and the platform was real crowded. And just as the train was coming, people were pushing and shoving, and Robert Lincoln was standing near the edge of the platform and got pushed off the platform and fell onto the tracks, as I say, just as the train was coming. And there's a question whether he could have gotten up by himself in time and raised himself up and pulled himself up off the tracks back to the platform. Also a question whether the train would have stopped in time. But a man there basically saved his life. A man saw what happened as Robert Lincoln fell onto the tracks, and he reached down, this man did, and pulled Robert Lincoln off the tracks, brought him up to the platform just as the train was coming to a stop there. And as I say, probably saved his life, at least saved him from very serious injury. And the man who did that, the man who saved Robert Lincoln, was a man named, he was a famous Shakespearean actor of the day. His name was Edwin Booth. And it would be Edwin Booth's brother, John Wilkes Booth, who would be the man who would later be the one who assassinated Robert Lincoln's father, Abraham Lincoln.
It's just mind-blowing. It really is.
It really is. And there's a little bit more to this story. As I say, Edwin Booth was a very famous Shakespearean actor. He's in the Hall of Fame of Great Americans. He's considered one of the great actors. We know this story is true because some years later, Robert Lincoln wrote a letter to Edwin Booth basically thanking him for saving his life. And Edwin Booth really cherished that letter because he felt so bad that his brother had been the one who was the assassin who assassinated Abraham Lincoln. So he saved that letter he got from Robert Lincoln, thanking him for basically saving Robert Lincoln's life. And that letter is in the Smithsonian Institution, so we have proof that story is true. But it's just another incredible example of what are the odds on that?
Yeah.
That would be the guy that would save Robert Lincoln,
so,
the man whose brother later shot his father.
As this information, as you uncovered this and you started to collect these facts, you must go through a bit of a process to verify or to research. How does that process work?
Well, somebody asked me this on a radio show the other day. We were talking about news. I studied journalism. That was my major in college. And I remember the first day of class, it was Journalism 101, I guess. The instructor said, there are two things you must remember as a journalist, the two most important things that you will find when you start writing as a journalist. And those two things are accuracy and speed. And of the two, in other words, when you're covering a news story, the two most important things are accuracy and speed. But he said, and of the two, accuracy is by far the most important. More important than speed to get it right. And so I sort of grew up with that, and that really should be the byword of journalists. They should be accurate. There's no question about that. So I've tried to, make sure that everything I have is correct. I'll tell a story. I don't know how much time we have left, Jay. I know a story where we had where somebody told me it was wrong, and then we really had to check the accuracy of it. It's a heck of a story. You want to get into that next?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. This is another presidential story, as a matter of fact, although our book, the all-time book, Fascinating Facts, has a lot more things and stuff on presidents, but there are so many interesting presidential facts, too. This one involves Gerald Ford when he was president in the 1970s. And Queen Elizabeth from England came to the United States on a state visit, and they had an elaborate state dinner for her at the White House with President Ford. And all during dinner, during this very fancy, elaborate dinner, the U.S. Marine Band was on the bandstand playing all during dinner, entertaining all the important guests. And, of course, the U.S. Marine Band is the official band of the U.S. president. So, anyhow, they're playing music all during dinner. And after dinner, President Ford gets up and walks over to the Queen to ask her for the first dance. They would walk on the dance floor to start the dancing after dinner with the first dance. So Ford is escorting Queen Elizabeth through the dance floor, and the U.S. Marine Corps Band plays the next song that just happened to be on their music stand. They've been playing music all during the evening, and they just turned the pages to the next song. And of all the songs in the world, the song that was next on their music stand was "The Lady is a Tramp," just as Queen Elizabeth was walking on the dance floor. Totally, innocent, unintentional, but that just happened to be the next song on their music stand. And it was sort of, we called that one of the most embarrassing moments in White House history. They're playing "The Lady is a Tramp" in honor of Queen Elizabeth.
Did you say that was when Gerald Ford was president?
Yeah, it was Gerald Ford.
I mean, it couldn't have happened to a more what seemed to be an accident-prone president.
Yeah, that's a very good point. He was a great athlete too, which is surprising. But he always seemed to stumble and hit people with golf balls and things like that. But anyhow, getting back to the accuracy part of that story, I had written that. And my friend who was from England said, he said, "I don't think that story is true." He said, "Because I don't think the Queen dances with commoners. She only dances with royalty." So I thought, did I make a mistake? Is this a wrong story? Well, it just so happened that my wife is in public relations and worked for a woman who was very active in Republican politics in the Western Pennsylvania area. And I knew she was very friendly with the Bushes and with Gerald Ford. Socially and professionally, she was with them quite a bit. So her name was Elsie Hillman. I said to my wife, "Would you call Elsie and just see if she by any chance would have Gerald Ford was still living then. This is in the middle of 1990s. I said, would you just check, see if I can get if she has Gerald Ford's phone number and I could call and, see if the story is true or not true. So anyhow, my wife called Elsie, and Elsie said, yeah, I have Gerald Ford. He lives in Palm Springs, California. Of course, he had been retired for a number of years, and she had his home phone number there in Palm Springs. So she gave it to my wife. My wife gave the number to me. So I sat down and dialed the number, and a man answered the phone. It was not President Ford. It was his male secretary. So I said I was a journalist, and I'd written this story, and somebody challenged the story, and I just wondered if you could ask the president if the story was true. So he took my number. He said, I'll call you back. And sure enough, in about 20 minutes, the phone rang, and he was on the phone. It wasn't President Ford, but it was his secretary. He said he asked Gerald Ford about the story, and Ford said, yes, that is true. That really did happen. So we got verification that the story was true. Just, a really funny story that of all the songs in the world, they had to play Lady is a Tramp for Queen Elizabeth.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll try to talk about some non-presidential or non-political related fascinating facts with our guest, Charles Reichblum. Dr. Knowledge. Check out knowledgeinanutshell.com. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm J.V. Johnson. I'll be back in just a moment. got Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge, with us. And Charles, we've only got a couple minutes here, and we do have some phone calls. So I want to try to get to at least one here before the bottom of the hour break, and then we'll get into some more of your fascinating facts. This is Jim calling from Buffalo, has some facts he wants to share. Hey, Jim, welcome to the show.
Wow, what a thrill. How you
Appreciate you calling. And that's kind of how it works too, isn't it, Charles? People bring this stuff to your attention and it helps you put some of the stuff
absolutely.
together.
Yeah, very nicely over the years. A lot of our stuff originated with somebody coming up. And then one thing leads to another. I don't know how much time we have.
We have
JV.
about a minute. We have about a minute here.
Well, I don't know if we can do it or not. I was going to go through all the coincidences, speaking of 9/11, on 9/11.
Yeah, let's do that after the break. And again, our caller, Jim from Buffalo, pointed out that McKinley was actually shot on 9/11, even though he died a couple of days later.
Yeah, and there are some great coincidences there on 9/11, 2001,
Right, of course. All right, so we'll do that after the break. Again, stop by the website, knowledgeinanutshell.com. The book is the all-time book of fascinating facts by our guest tonight, Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we'll continue our discussion. We'll also take more of your phone calls at 844-687-7669. Thanks for listening. I'm J.V. Johnson. This is Beyond Reality Radio. We've got a lot more to come. Okay, so here's the deal. You all know Buck. I got this. Well, I probably don't want to show his address. I won't show his address, I'm sorry. But I got this package. It says open here. So I want you all to be witnesses. I've been soaking in water for the last 3 hours. Let's just see here. I'm going to be very, very careful about how I open this. Yeah, and don't make fun of my hair, because I was in my bedroom in the air conditioning because it's so damn hot here. Lying in bed watching. Actually, I was listening to another radio show, a competitor. So, JV, some goodies for you from our local nut and candy shop, who also makes everything on site. Sound like it might be delicious. Let's see here. Ooh, now we're talking. First stop. Yes. Second stop. Look at that. Oh, boy. Doug, what are you trying to do to me? And third stop. Look at that. See, they know how good this stuff is. Make sure don't... Doug, thank you so much. That is not the explosive device that I thought was going to be in this box, so I'm very much appreciative. And I'm also very appreciative for you fueling my addiction to snacking, particularly the orange slices. It's all good. Thank you. Welcome back to the show. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson. Jason is off tonight. Thanks for being here, everyone. By the way, thank you to all the great radio stations carrying the program around the country. The list of affiliates continues to grow, and we appreciate each and every one of them. If you listen on one of those stations, drop them a line. Let them know that you do and that you appreciate them carrying the show. Don't forget, tomorrow night, Crystal Reed, author and pet psychic, will be with us discussing pets and her book, How to Live with a Psychic. And then Thursday, Keith McCluskey, who is an author, will be talking about the Flannan Isles mystery. We've got a lot of great programs coming up. Friday, of course, is a best of on Beyond Reality Radio. Tonight, we're talking with Charles Reichblum, Dr. Knowledge, about his book, The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts. Charles, there's a lot of facts that you've talked about and you've included in your book that relate to geography. Give us a couple of those.
Okay, well, let's start with one. How about a U.S. state that has the wrong name? There is a U.S. state that really, their name is really wrong.
There's a U.S. state that the name is actually wrong?
Yeah, you can ask your friends about that and everything. The answer, you want the answer?
Yeah, let's. What's the answer?
It's Rhode Island, which is not an island.
And you know what? If Jason were on the program, because he lives in Rhode Island, he would be talking about that with you, because he talks about his home state all the time. So that's absolutely true. Rhode Island is not an island. It's got a heck of a lot of coastline for a tiny state, but
it's on the mainland of the United States. And we have in our book how it got that. Nobody knows for sure how it got that wrong name, but there are two theories. One is that one of the early explorers of North America sailed along the coast there and thought that the coastline of what became Rhode Island looked like the Isle of Rhodes, the famous Isle of Rhodes in the Mediterranean. So he named it Rhode Island, not knowing that it wasn't an island. He just saw the coastline. And then another theory is that there was a Dutch explorer in the early days who saw red clay along the coastline. I don't know the Dutch language, but the Dutch words for red clay are something like root eland, and he gave it that name, and the name evolved into Rhode Island. That's one theory. That's for sure why it's called an island when it's not, but it has been since the beginning of the nation. It's been called Rhode Island, but you can ask a friend what state has the wrong name, and there you go. It is Rhode Island, which is not an island.
It's Rhode Island. And I think I saw somewhere along the way on your website a teaser about being born in two states at once or something.
Yes. If people go to our website, and by the way, if they do go to our website, knowledgeinanutshell.com, it's one word, knowledgeinanutshell.com. You can see the book there and read about it and order it if you'd like. By the way, the price, if I may mention it, is it's $19.95 for the book, which that's the total. That includes shipping and handling. But anyhow, you can see the book there and read about it. And we do mention there that there was a person born in Florida and Missouri. And you could say to yourself, well, now, how can that be? Those states are so far apart. How could you be born in both Florida and Missouri? But actually, a very famous person was born in Florida and Missouri. It was Mark Twain, the famous author, and it was in a small town in northeast Missouri by the name of Florida, where he was born. And he spent his life disputes over the boundaries, and unfortunately, the representatives of Franklin were from the opposition party in Congress, and the representatives from Tennessee and North Carolina infringed on this poor little state of Franklin. North Carolina took part of it. Tennessee took part of it, and after 4 years, the state of Franklin ceased to exist. But I was doing a radio show one night, and I mentioned that, and a woman called and said, thank you very much for that story, because she always wondered, there's a road in Tennessee, in eastern Tennessee, called the State of Franklin Highway. And she always wondered, where it got that name, why it was called the State of Franklin Highway. But that's why, because that road used to go into what was at one time the state of Franklin, sitting there between North Carolina and Tennessee. And the odd thing is, JV, that of all our 50 states, only one has been named after a president. You would think more states would have been named after presidents, but the state of Washington is the only one named after Washington. And here's poor Benjamin Franklin, who certainly deserved to have a state named after him, and did, but doesn't anymore.
That's interesting. I actually kind of considered myself a bit of a student of geography and American history, and I had never heard about the state of Franklin before.
Yeah, it didn't last very long, but it was there. And there is that, interestingly, that road that's called the State of Franklin Highway there, which is interesting.
It is interesting. So, what other types of things do you when you get this information, Charles, and you read through it? What categories of interesting facts get you the most excited?
Oh, I don't know. I'm a great sports fan. We do have a lot of sports facts, sports stories in the book, and certainly presidential history is always interesting, but many others too. We mentioned "Happy Birthday to You" in passing earlier in the program. We do have some stories on songs and entertainment, and it's interesting that the "Happy Birthday to You" story always fascinated me because it's you might say it's the most famous song we have. Everybody knows the song "Happy Birthday to You,"
right?
And yet, if you ask somebody, "Hey, who wrote that song?" And the answer, interestingly enough, is not a famous songwriter at all, even though it's such a great, popular, well-known song. And in fact, it wasn't a famous songwriter. It wasn't even a songwriter who wrote "Happy Birthday to You." The song was written by two school-teaching sisters in Lexington, Kentucky. Their names were Mildred and Patty Hill. And they wrote this song originally just as a classroom greeting. They originally called it "Good Morning to All." That was the original title and the original lyrics, "Good Morning to All." And they just basically wrote it as a classroom greeting when the kids came into class in the morning. And one day they heard that one of the kids was having a birthday the next day, so that evening they changed the words from "Good Morning to All" to "Happy Birthday to You." And as we say, the rest is history. The song became, some people say it's the most sung song we have. And here it was written by somebody who never wrote another song, by the way, and one of the most famous songs we have, written by two school-teaching sisters who were not songwriters. Very much like another example is "Taps." Some people have called that the most haunting song of all time. It's a beautiful melody, "Taps."
Right.
It was written by an Army general who was not a songwriter, never wrote another song before that or another song after that, yet wrote such a memorable tune as "Taps."
Has the proliferation of the internet and our access to the internet on smartphones, has that changed the way you collect this information?
No, because I really started before we had computers. What is not, what you can trust and what you can't, and then we always try to go to a source, just like I told the lady as a tramp story. If we could go to the source to find out if the story was absolutely true, and the nice thing about the thing that thrills me most about the All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts is the reaction we're getting from people who say they bought it, either adults bought it for their kids or the kids got hold of it and quizzed their parents and the parents quizzed the kids. It's good for all ages, really, and that's very gratifying.
Yeah, that makes it a lot of fun. Charles, we're out of time here. Again, thank you for coming back onto the show. Let people know one more time where they can get the book.
It is, our website is knowledgeinanutshell.com. That's one word, knowledgeinanutshell.com. We also have an 800 number, 1-800-NUTSHELL. But we recommend you go on to knowledgeinanutshell.com because you can see the book there and read about it. It is also on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. But the easiest way really is just to go to the all-time, or go to knowledgeinanutshell.com. Name of the book is The All-Time Book of Fascinating Facts, but the website is Knowledge in a Nutshell, one word, knowledgeinanutshell.com, and you can see all the information on the all-time book of fascinating facts.
Well, it's always a treat to have you on, Charles. Thanks again for being here. Look forward to having you on again down the road.
Well, JV, this has been great being with you, and thank you so much.
All right, so again, it's knowledgeinanutshell.com. Visit the website. We're going to take a break. During the break, I'm going to pick a playing card, and we'll have about 5 minutes on the other side of the break. If you want to call 844-687-7669 and participate in our psychic remote viewing experiment to end the evening. Again, the number is 844-687-7669. I'm J.V. Johnson. It's Beyond Reality Radio. Thank you to Charles Reichblum for being with us tonight, Dr. Knowledge. Some really, really interesting stuff there. Again, check out his website, knowledgeinanutshell.com. It's the all-time book of fascinating facts. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to, as much as we can here in the next 4 minutes or so, we're going to do our psychic remote viewing experiment. So I've got a playing card in front of me that I drew from a regular 52-card deck. I'm going to concentrate on this card. I'm going to take your phone calls at 844-687-7669. I'll be focusing on the card, and all you have to do is see if you can guess or tap into my mind and tell me what the card is. If you come up with it, we have a T-shirt for you. It's fun. Some people have expressed a belief they have some psychic abilities, and this gives us an opportunity to test that, even though it is a very quick and not a very easy test. But either way, it's fun. So let's start doing this. I've got the card in front of me. I'm looking at it. Let's go to our first caller. This is Harleen calling from Kansas. Hi, Harleen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Harleen, do you consider yourself to be somebody who has some psychic or remote viewing abilities?
Well, of course.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. Well, you ready to give this a shot then?
I am.
Okay.
But this may be the card that you removed. I'm feeling that.
Okay. Could be.
And
I am focusing on this one right now, so tell me what you see.
I'm going to say the Queen of Clubs.
It's not the Queen of Clubs, and I don't remember if that was the card we had before. I don't think it was the one I had last time, but I do think it was a card or two ago we had the Queen of Clubs, so maybe that's what you're sensing.
Okay, yeah, it seemed to be more in the past.
Yeah, well, this one isn't the Queen of Clubs. Thanks so much for giving it a shot, Harleen. We appreciate you calling and listening.
Thank you.
All right, let's go to Vince, good friend of the show. Hey, Vince, welcome.
Nine of spades.
It is not the 9 of spades, but boy, you get right down to it, don't you?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thanks for calling in. All right, so it's that simple. If you want to give it a shot, the number is 844-687-7669. Again, I'm looking at the card. It's a card from a regular 52-card deck, just a regular playing deck. Let's go to Joe in Indiana. Hey, Joe, welcome to the program. I know you've tried this before.
Oh, yeah. I enjoy doing it. It's a lot of fun.
It is fun, right? Okay, so I'm focused on this card. I'm looking at it. I can't think about it any harder without just giving myself a headache. So what do you see?
2 diamonds.
Nope, that's not it. That's not it. But thanks for trying again, Joe. We appreciate you calling in. We have time, let's see here, I don't know if we have enough time for another call, actually. And not to be fair. So, okay, remember tomorrow night we've got Crystal Reed, author and pet psychic, on the program. We'll be talking about pets and her book, How to Live with a Psychic. And Keith McCluskey will join us on Thursday night's program talking about the Flannan Isles mystery. We will keep this playing card in front of us, and if we have some time, tomorrow night we'll bring it back out here, and we'll spend a little time doing that tomorrow. In the meantime, we had a request for a little bit of this, and let's see here, which one did we want to do? We wanted to do this. Okay, so we're gonna play this because we had a request for it, and then that's gonna do it. So thanks everybody for being here. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV Johnson.
Thanks for helping in the garden, baby.
No problem. I gotta go again.
Again? Hey, wait a minute.
Crapco presents.
It's the Crapco Turtleizer.
The Crapco Turtleizer.
Make your duty do its duty with the Crapco Turtleizer. Turn regular household human waste into fertilizer for your lawn or garden.
We all do it, so we may as well get some benefit from it.
My tomato plant's never been more juicy. Thanks, Turtleizer.
And finally, my cucumbers are bigger and firmer than ever. I can't thank you enough, Turtleizer. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
And it's 100% natural.
And the Crapco Turtleizer works great with houseplants, too.
Don't my begonias look beautiful?
Yeah, I've never seen them flower like that before. But what's that smell?
The Crapco Turtleizer comes with all the things you need to make your morning chore into a whole lot more. Like a hardy, stain-resistant net.
A supply of Turtleizer reusable storage bags.
A copy of People magazine.
And an Ocean Breeze air freshener.
The Crapco Turtleizer.
Use it as a school project.
Have the neighbors over for a Turtleizer party.
Bring it to Grandma's for the weekend.
Use it near kill-fired ceramics.
It's a big help when potty training.
And
And don't forget those romantic dinners for two.
Baby, this salad is really good.
Yeah, I grew it myself with the Crapco Turtleizer. Thanks, Crapco.
Start a small business for the wife by selling your extra Turtleizer to the neighbors.
What's the scoop with your poop?
Don't flush all those goodies down the toilet.
The Crapco Turtleizer.
The Crapco Turtleizer is available for a special limited time price. And get this free bathroom decanter to store your Turtleizer materials.
The Crapco Turtleizer may cause unpleasant odors and a rash. Get yours today.
That's going to do it, everybody. Thanks for being here. It's Beyond Reality Radio. I'm JV. I will be back with you tomorrow night with Crystal Reed, author and pet psychic.
She's got something that moves my soul, and she knows I'd love to love her, but she lets me down every time. Can't make her mine. She's no one's lover tonight. With me, she'll be so inviting. I want her all for myself. Oh, temptation eyes looking through my soul. With temptation.
So thank you very much, Doug, for those treats. I didn't even get a chance to open one of those, but tomorrow night I will because I've got to taste some of those yummy treats. And you were telling me about the shop that makes those. That's pretty cool. There aren't too many of those specialty candy shops around anymore, especially the ones that make all their own stuff. So that's really neat. Thank you for sharing that with me. I really do appreciate it. No, what? No, what? No, what? Yes, now we say goodnight, right? This is our opportunity to. I wish I could see and hear all of you too, because that would make it fair. But who's fair anymore, right? There's no fairness. I have to give up. There's times I just have to give up, right? You can only beat your head against the wall so much. Tonight was tough. It was very, very difficult night for some reason, juggling stuff. But how's the audio? Is the audio cleared itself up, or do we still have buzzing and crackling and popping? Is that any different? Because tomorrow I'm gonna retrograde this software and see if that makes any difference. Thanks, Brian. There's a realist for us. It is. It's Doug. It is like the end of the Waltons, and I think you should change your name to John Boy. Oh, Oliver's is in Batavia, New York. Yeah, Rolling Hills. Yeah, in fact. Who was just talking about Batavia? No, but it wasn't New York, Batavia. Oh, it was Rebecca Foster did an event in Batavia, Illinois. And at first I thought she was talking about Batavia, New York. You can stay for an extra 30 minutes. I think what I'm going to do is go for another walk. I can't walk during the day just because it's so darn hot. So nobody's going to tell me about, oh, it is still crackling? Crud. Once in a while? Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, tomorrow I'll change the software out. We'll see if that makes any difference. Because last night it was perfect. Last night I didn't hear it. Sounded absolutely flawless last night. Yeah, I walk. I try to walk a couple times a day, Doug. I have to because I like orange slices too much. Brian. Oh, I don't know where you want to go. Okay. Anyway. So, thanks for being here. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'll be thinking of you all. Love you all. Take care, guys. Thank you so much.